Welcome to the interview. How's it going?
It's good. I'm sorry I'm a little late.
No problem.
Okay. Back.
Yeah, no problem. We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Let's get started.
I agree.
Yeah, so I think you're going to start off with Young Justice, I think, and then we're going to go into, I think, a little bit of the Star Wars comic that you work on, and then some of your recent work with your books, as well as, a little backstory on why did you get interested in writing and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I'll start off with a Young Justice question regarding to the fan base and everything. Basically, what do you think of the Young Justice fan base being? Are you kind of surprised how whelmed they are in the demands of season 3 possibly, and just how strong the fan base is towards Young Justice? Are you surprised how passionate the fan base is for the show?
Well, I'm not at this point. We've got great fans on the show, and it's very gratifying, and I'm happy that they want more. Brandon and I really want to make more. The trick is to sort of use all that positive energy in a pragmatic way. And that's what I've been trying to do the last couple months, because I think there are specifically 3 pragmatic ways that the fans can help get the show back. There are a lot of other things they can do, but they're not practical. I mean, they're not, they're nice. Like, people write me and say, hey, should we start a petition? And my reaction is like, look, petitions are nice, but they're not going to actually do anything. Here are 3 real specific ways that the fans can actively do things to help bring the show back. And it's pretty straightforward. The first way is to keep binging YJ on Netflix. Netflix, as of February 1st, put the 2nd season finally up domestically. And if fans binge the 1st and 2nd season on Netflix, that is an objective way that both Netflix and Warner Brothers can see that there's a real fan base there, that it's a financially viable property. There are other things they can do with Netflix. They can contact customer service. I recommend being polite all the time at Netflix, because, no one, if you're rude or, saying things like, hey, jerkface, how come you're not making more Young Justice? That just makes everyone want to turn off. But if you're polite and say, hey, we'd really love some more Young Justice, it seems to be having an effect that, like, logging in and talking to Netflix customer service, those messages are going upstairs to Netflix and across the way, so to speak, to Warner Brothers, and that's what we need to do. If you're in a country where Netflix isn't showing Young Justice, go to Netflix customer service and, again, politely ask them to start. And, again, the messages get passed uphill, so to speak, and you wind up getting some actual numbers and things that the powers that be pay attention to. So Netflix is one way. The second way is to buy the DVDs or Blu-rays for Season 1 and Season 2 of Young Justice. Again, that's voting with your wallet, and that's a really pragmatic way because money is literally going into the pockets of Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. And then Warner Brothers Home Entertainment will say, wow, we're making a lot of money on Young Justice. Too bad we don't have more DVDs now. And a third way that's also important is to buy, we've made Young Justice companion comics, and those were packaged into trade paperbacks, 4 trade paperbacks. They're very hard to get. They're out of print. But one thing that fans can pragmatically do is to buy those comics in trades on ComiXology or on the DC Comics app. Buy them electronically. If you buy the comics now, the actual hard copies of the comics, that's second market. So DC doesn't see any money from that anymore. Those were already sold, and it's too late. I'm not knocking. You know, I'm an old-fashioned guy, so I like having the hard copies myself.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you can find them in a comic book store or on eBay, that's great. Go for it. But that doesn't actually help us get the show back or get new issues of a comic book in the Young Justice universe. If you want that, then a way that really helps is to get them on ComiXology, because, again, that's money that goes directly into DC Comics' pocket, and DC, of course, owns all these characters, so DC would then go to Warner Brothers and say, hey, we're making money on Young Justice. Maybe we should do some more.
Okay. So if you buy the hard copies, does that mean that it's a third party is what you're getting at? That's actually going to make the money, right? So
right. In other words, and again, if you want the hard copies, please, by all means, get them. But that's not going to tell DC anything. They won't even know that sale took place.
Mm-hmm.
They've already sold those issues themselves. It's out of print. So if you want DC's attention, Warner Brothers' attention, keeping in mind that both DC and Warner Brothers Animation and Warner Brothers Home Entertainment are all divisions of Time Warner. If you want the powers that be to pay attention, you've got to buy the e-comics on ComiXology or on the DC Comics app.
Is there any thought about doing like a Kickstarter type of thing, or
that's a non-starter?
Okay.
We don't own this property. It's owned. The show is owned by Warner Brothers Animation. The characters are owned by DC Comics. You cannot kickstart something you do not own.
Right.
Period.
Okay.
Right.
So the notion of the fans, and fans have talked about this, and I keep telling fans this, and it's hard to get the message through to the vast majority, but the fact is really crystal clear. Fans cannot kickstart a project they do not own. And Warner Brothers is not interested in crowdfunding their shows. Now, I don't know why. But I also, what I do know is that it's not practical. Because in order to make, let's say we wanted to make a 26-episode third season, you'd need at minimum $13 million. And there's no way you'd crowdfund $13 million for a cartoon show.
Well, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable because you might get that first infusion of cash, but you want to make more than, you know, the actual thing of what to make it. So you need to be able to sell it to people after you make it. So that we need to basically show that there's a demand for the show, and that people are continuously involved with not just their passion and everything, with their actual greenbacks, so to speak. Because this is an enterprise.
So it's all about voting with the wallet. So if you have Netflix, binge on Netflix. If you, whether you have it or not, buy the Blu-rays, buy the DVDs, and again, buy them first market. Don't, buy them secondhand from some guy on eBay.
Yeah, that wouldn't.
Because then Warner Brothers doesn't see the money. If you don't have them, buy the comics on ComiXology. Because again, that's voting with your wallet. All three of those are pragmatic methods for convincing the powers that be that the show is viable. And I'm not making guarantees. People are going, well, if we do this, does that mean for sure it'll happen? And I can't make that kind of guarantee. I don't even work at Warner Brothers anymore. And none of this money goes in my pocket. I want to make that perfectly clear. I have no ownership, nothing in this. But what I'm saying is that these are actual ways to get the attention of the people who do control the property. Whereas, a petition is nice, but that's really something that the fans do for themselves. And what happens with this petition? They send it in and someone pays attention or someone doesn't. But it doesn't mean anything because it doesn't represent any financial commitment from the fans.
Oh, absolutely not.
Also, regarding to that, do you have like any insights? Could you say that that basically, do companies even look at petitions like that? Like, do they even like glance at that if they hear like Young Justice Season 3 is happening? It has like over 1 million signers. Would they even like take the day to even glance at that and be like, oh, there is an audience maybe?
You know, it's a good question. I think when petitions were unique, 10 years ago maybe that would make an eyebrow raise. But petitions, I got to be honest, are a dime a dozen now. Every show, no matter how popular or unpopular, generates a petition. And no one, so would someone at a company glance at it? Maybe. But they're not going to go through and bother to see, well, let's see, make sure that no one signed this thing twice, let alone 200 times.
With the petition, you're getting at the fact that you're just putting your signature on it. You're not guaranteeing any funds or revenue, and it's a company, it's an enterprise. They need to make money.
Or if you're even going to watch it, if they even do follow through with it, it's kind of like the Inuyasha thing on Adult Swim, where I've heard in the past where people complain all the time when Inuyasha gets canceled from Adult Swim. They complain when they take it away, and then when they bring it back, no one watches it. And with the Toonami thing, and you know how Jason always talks, vote with your eyeballs, ratings and everything. Ratings says it all. Ratings and money. Like you said, Greg, with the DVDs and bench watching it on Netflix and just getting those views and funds up.
Well, and one advantage that Netflix has is that every view is registered, every single one.
Right.
If you're at home watching Cartoon Network or ABC or any of those broadcast or cable networks, if you don't have a Nielsen box, your vote's not being counted. Now, what you hope is that Nielsen is doing a good job at strategically placing their Nielsen boxes so that every time you're watching, someone with a box is probably also watching because they have the same taste as you.
Yeah.
But there's no guarantee, and nothing you can do creates that, check mark for the company. But Netflix literally registers every view that every person who has Netflix logs in, So I tell people, and I'm not kidding, turn on Netflix, turn on Young Justice, and go do the dishes or do your homework or whatever. Let it run in the back. I don't even care if you watch it. Not that I want you to watch it, but the fact of the matter is let the damn thing run. When you go to work in the morning, turn on Young Justice and let the whole season.
Yeah, autoplay. Yeah, the autoplay.
We just want to get, because Netflix records every single one, so it means that your vote is literally being counted. Not like Nielsen, where you're hoping that if enough people like me are watching this show, then there's probably one of those people has a box, and it works.
But
you don't know. With Netflix, you absolutely know. You watch it, bing, it's registered.
Well, you heard it here first. Vote with your eyeballs and your wallets. Get Young Justice if you can. I believe on Amazon, right? The DVDs are sold on Amazon?
Yeah, you can get the DVDs or the Blu-rays on Amazon or, any regular retailer.
What about digitally, like on iTunes?
I don't know if they have it on iTunes.
I know they have it on Amazon Video, so it's probably the same thing.
That's something, yeah. So get Young Justice on Amazon, and what was the comics that you were saying?
ComiXology, ComiXology, ComiXology.com. And
okay.
You can buy all the Young Justice issues. We did 26 issues. We did 4 trades. For some reason, one of the trades isn't available, but you can get 3 of the trades and get the 4th. You can just get the individual issues. All the issues are available. And we're talking about the Young Justice companion comic, not the 90s Young Justice comic, although I'd recommend that too. That was by Peter David and Todd Knock, and Peter and Todd did a great job on that book. And that book was one of the many inspirations for the show. But buying that book doesn't have the same, well, even that would help, frankly. But what you want to make sure you're getting is the companion issues from 2010 to about 2012 or 13.
Now,
Okay.
do you think the fact that there is a big talk about kind of having a Justice League kind of movie, kind of what the Avengers are too, do you think if that gets enough interest, so to speak? I mean, it hasn't been really confirmed yet, but everyone's kind of theorizing that that's
it's confirmed.
So do you think that's going to help, getting Young Justice up? Because, I mean,
No.
not at all. It won't affect anything
No,
if it's
because,
popular.
DC's doing stuff with Justice League. They've got a new Justice League cartoon about to come out. They've got, there's plenty of stuff that DC's doing with their heroes. If what you want specifically is Young Justice, then you've got to target Young Justice stuff, and that's Netflix, that's ComiXology, that's buying the DVDs or Blu-rays. It's in other words, no one's saying that DC Entertainment's going to stop making entertainment with DC characters. Of course they're going to continue. I haven't seen it, but Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, had a huge opening, huge.
Yep.
And
400-something million.
they're obviously going to make more movies.
500 million.
That's not even a question.
Yeah.
But that's got nothing to do with Young Justice at all. Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Lucifer. They're making a lot of TV shows too. Great. I'm not knocking it. Don't get me wrong. It's terrific. But that's got nothing to do with Young Justice. If you want Young Justice specifically, and believe me, Brandon and I really want to make more, got plenty of ideas,
Vote with your eyeballs.
then you've got to target Young Justice specifically.
Okay.
So merchandise and dollar votes is what it goes down to.
Well, speaking of Young Justice, I have some questions for you kind of pertaining to the production of the show and some of the ideas with the storylines and everything. I was kind of hoping if we can kind of dive into that a little bit. Is that okay with you, Greg?
Well, sure. I mean, I'm happy to talk about process, happy to talk about what's already aired. Because we are hoping to do more, I won't spoil anything. So if your questions are like, well, what would happen next? My answer is going to be, that's a spoiler, I won't tell you. But if you want to talk about what's already aired or has already been in the comics, or if you want to talk about process, happy to do that.
Well, to be fair, my question was going to be, do you have any ideas for possible season 3 if that was coming? But obviously, you just answered that, so we'll skip that one for you. But that's good. I'm really happy to hear that you have some ideas rolling around for.
We have
season 3.
a solid plan for season 3, and we have ideas for season 4 and 5 at least.
Oh my! You heard it. You heard it here first, folks.
So 3 more seasons.
Only kidding. Only kidding.
Now you're just going to keep on voting with your eyeballs.
Well, for viewers, possible spoilers from here on out. Just to clarify. So if you don't want to be spoiled by Young Justice spoilers, I would turn it off here now and go watch Young Justice and then come back to us. So, my next question is basically regarding to the first 2 seasons and the production side of it, kind of, sort of. I was wondering, after watching the show, I was really impressed with how well written and how kind of planned out the show was from season 1 and 2. And I was wondering, was season 1 and 2 kind of written in mind? Like, while you were working on season 1, did you have ideas for how season 2 was going to go? A la the time skip and everything? Like, was that all planned out ahead of time? Or did you just go through season 1 and then once season 1 ended, they're like, hey, let's make a season 2. They're like, okay, what do we do now? Okay. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, and like I said, we had it all planned out.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Did you get information that you're going to get 2 seasons, or did you write it just continuously and just they said, okay, now you do second season, and you just said, okay, we already have it, here you go?
We didn't have a guarantee of a second season, but we hoped for one, and so we had a plan for season 2. Just like we were writing season 2, we had a plan for season 3, which we didn't get. But we had the plan. And, if we do get a season 3, we'll make sure we're clear on what the plan for season 4 is. Like I said, we've got plenty of ideas. That's not the problem.
So you kind of over-prepared yourselves just in case, possibly?
I wouldn't say over-prepared. I feel like we did the exact right amount of preparation.
Okay. Did you find that as a challenge, being the writer and everything? Did you find that as a challenge as the writer, trying not to reveal too much, even though you knew what was coming ahead of time and all that?
I mean, it's all challenging, but it's fun. You know, I'm a guy who doesn't like to give a lot away. I'm actually kind of well known for that. So if anything, I tend to err on the side of dropping just tiny tidbits along the way. What we wanted to do is make the show a lot of fun to watch once, and then after you've watched it once, you can go back and watch it a second time and see all the clues that we planted, most of which, understandably, you didn't notice because you didn't know what was coming. But if you wanted to, on a second viewing, to sort of see the kind of hints we dropped about McGann's true form or Artemis's family or 100 other things probably, it's all there. And it makes second viewings, the third viewings interesting because you'll catch things that you didn't catch the first time through because they didn't seem significant initially. And so they sort of, right over your head and the first time, but the second time you're like, oh my God, they knew they were doing this back in episode 1, and we did. Yeah. So it's all there, and that to me is a lot of fun. Yeah, you mentioned season 2, episode 1, where the whole thing was planned out and everything. I was actually kind of wondering, watching that, what happens in between that time skip between season 1 and 2. I was always wondering, as maybe that could be possibly a season 3, like that untold story. Like I know you kind of told it in season 2, but was it ever considered that kind of going into that time skip storyline that wasn't really shown? Was that ever considered to be season 2 originally? And since they kind of stopped the production, no. We planned the time skip pretty much from day one. The only thing that was in question was how long the time skip would be, and we pretty early on settled on 5 years. We planned on, or we hoped to, and we did a little of this. Some of those 5-year gap was filled in, obviously, on the show itself. Anything you needed to know was eventually revealed on the show itself. There was other stories that we told in the companion comic. And then there was the video game, Young Justice Legacy, which was set during the 5-year gap and told a very important story. From the 5-year gap.
I may have to hunt that game down then.
So, but we haven't told nearly a quarter or a fifth of what happened during that 5-year gap. So, among the things I'd love to do is bring this back as a comic book so we could use the comic book to fill in a few more of those blanks. I mean, you know everything you need to know, but there's more that would be fun to know.
Oh, wow. Okay, then. That's cool. Yeah, because I've always wondered, like, pretty much how that whole thing went down and why, Nightwing and Aqualad and all those guys. I was wondering, like, what happened for them to go to this drastic of a measure, I
mean, that kind of world building and that kind of weaving a tapestry of stories, I've been doing that since Gargoyles, and it's a lot of fun for me.
Yes. I didn't watch the whole show, but I remember Gargoyles growing up, and I remember that show, even though I didn't see the whole thing, I remember that show leaving an impact on me. Like, it's just one of those shows that stands out. I just wanted to say.
Well, you should go watch it now.
I know I should.
All available on DVD. The first 2 seasons are all available on DVD, and you should go back and watch it. It's really good stuff.
I plan to eventually. I assure you with that.
Yeah, when I started watching Young Justice, that's where I started.
In season 2?
Yeah. For whatever reason, Netflix put me on season 2.
Huh. Weird. That is kind of weird.
It started to make sense after I watched the first season.
I mean, it's doable. You can start anywhere, frankly, but obviously you're going to get more out of it if you start from the beginning.
Yeah. That is a pretty
we tried to make
start,
every
though.
episode stand on its own 2 feet, so that if you happen to be watching TV or Netflix or whatever, and the first episode you saw was episode 8, it's a great story in 8 that makes you want to then see 9, and eventually makes you want to go back and see 1 through 7. And we tried to do that for every episode, that, no matter where you started, you wouldn't be completely at sea, that every episode explains what you need to know for that episode in the episode, and that every episode tells a great story in its own right, so that you could start anywhere. But yeah, there's no doubt you get more out of it by starting at the beginning.
Was that hard to do, to actually have all those episodes stand alone and kind of plan the information that you give to the viewer? Or is that just come naturally and you kind of
it's a learned craft sort of thing. I mean, again, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm really, really old. So, we learned to do that on Gargoyles. On Gargoyles, one lesson that I learned is we did previously on Gargoyles a little 30-second segment before every episode of Season 2. And we didn't do it because we thought they're going to need this information to understand the episode. It was actually an editing cheat. We'd get bad footage back from overseas studios, and we're like, ugh. I want to cut that 3 seconds of really bad animation out, but we need those 3 seconds. Well, if you do a 30-second clip at the beginning of the episode with clips from previous episodes, we can cut 30 seconds of bad animation out of this thing. So we thought we were being genius, but it actually backfired on us, because those previously things, instead of giving people a little bit of help, actually made people feel like they had missed too much. So people got the impression that they couldn't just jump into the series at any point, which in fact they could have, because everything you needed to know for the episode was in the episode, even without those 30 seconds previously segments. So after Gargoyles, I never did another show with previously on, because it wasn't necessary. And it hurt us audience-wise, viewership-wise, quantity viewership.
Interesting.
All from bad animation.
Well, that's where it started, yeah.
So that was something that you kind of mastered. So when you went into this project, you kind of said, let's do this. And it kind of came out in a logical manner that, was that... It just seems that, for me at least, I'm not a writer, nowhere near it, it seemed to be incredibly hard to do that and make sure that each one is standalone and it gives you just enough information, even if you didn't watch the previous one. So,
yeah, even our pilot, which was originally released as a 1-hour movie, when we split it into 2 episodes, the way I opened the second episode is by having Dr. Desmond basically spell out everything that happened in the first episode, so that if you had missed the first episode, you could still pick up right with episode 2, because everything you needed to know, Dr. Desmond just told you. He's talking to the light, but you're listening, so the audience gets it. Now, it worked both in the context of the 1-hour movie version, but it also worked for that half hour, so that if you happen to have missed the first half hour, you could come in right there. It didn't tell you everything that had happened in the first half hour, but it told you everything you needed to know in order to enjoy the second half hour.
Yeah, that was one of the things I really liked watching through and all. That's one of the things, like, I couldn't get over how well written it was with the setup, in the beginning, basically telling the previous episode's story, and on top of that too, just going into the next episode. I thought the writing of the characters was just really natural, and also it progressed the plot really well, but not revealing too much. I honestly, it's one of the more better written shows I've seen in a long time, and
Well,
I still couldn't get over it. Yeah, no problem. Like I write the story and the characters are my biggest bane when it comes to like production stuff like this and everything, and I just wanted to let you know that the writing was just damn near perfect. I was really entertained. I thought it was really, it just felt really natural, the characters. I couldn't get over
it. You know, I mean, you want them to feel real, particularly in this show. We did a lot of stuff to, we've got this superhero sci-fi fantasy show on a lot of levels, but what we wanted to do was as much as possible and in as many ways as possible grounded in reality. So you've got the timestamps, which gives you a concrete sense of time, a concrete sense of place. It tells you where and when you are at the beginning of every major sequence. You've got the way Brandon and Phil Barraza, our character designer, design those costumes for the characters. I mean, one of Brandon's goals from the beginning was he didn't want it to look like all the superheroes and supervillains went and shopped at the same superhero discount store, for their costume.
Yeah.
So some people have padding, or armor, and they wanted each one to feel unique to the needs of each character.
To each character, yeah.
And then that plays out in dialogue and in characterization as well. We want these characters to feel as real to the audience as possible.
Where did Robin's I guess like his famous line, why can't anybody be whelmed about things? Like, where did that come from? I'm like, when I first heard it, I laughed because I was like, yeah, Robin does bring up a good point.
Well, that was something I actually used to. My kids and I, we called them unwords. It's like. So that whelm discussion was actually something I literally had with my kids. Underwhelmed, overwhelmed. How come no one's ever just whelmed? And then once we had done that in the pilot, we began looking for other unwords, like feel the aster or be as chalant as you like, that kind of thing, because it just felt like Robin was this playful character, and one of the things he'd play with is words. And
also just considering Robin's character being around Bruce Wayne a la Batman all the time, he's never whelmed. Let's just be honest here. He's never satisfied.
Batman is always whelmed. He's never overwhelmed. He's never underwhelmed. He's always whelmed. Because you got to understand, whelmed means maintaining an even strain.
Yes.
Whelmed is the middle ground that no one ever seems to be at. Everyone's either underwhelmed, like unimpressed, or overwhelmed, like, whoa, it's too much. No, Batman is always whelmed.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, because I was going to say, like, it just seems like if Batman isn't doing it, he isn't satisfied, and I would think that kind of rubbed off of Robin, like, Batman, when are you going to be satisfied with what I do,
That's not how we played Batman and Robin in the show. Batman is often and always satisfied. I mean, he's not effusive with compliments, but when Batman says, okay, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, but overall, good job, Robin knows that's like him saying, you guys were amazing! Because Batman doesn't get big and emotive about things, so if he just says good job flatly, Robin knows that's good. And it didn't take long for the rest of the team to figure that out either.
Right.
One word of simple praise from Batman means a hell of a lot more than like Captain Marvel gushing over them.
Right. Yep. No, you're right about that. Well, speaking of Robin and the rest of the team and everything, what kind of led you in the writers and the production, what led you to decide with going with Artemis and Santana, Robin, Blue Beetle, I guess, in season 2? But yeah, what made you decide I want these characters in our show?
Well, when we started developing the series, Brandon Vietti and I, the very first thing I did was I compiled a list of all of DC's teenage heroes, all of them. So, you find out interesting things when you start putting a list like that together, 50, 60 characters on this list, including not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 blonde female teenage archers. Because obviously 3 blonde female teenage archers wasn't enough. So, it gave us a lot to choose from, and we wanted a mix of characters who had superpowers and some that didn't, just had, mad skills instead. We wanted a mix of personalities. We wanted characters specifically that one of the themes for the show is secrets and lies, particularly in season 1. So we wanted characters that were keeping secrets and or telling lies. And so we were looking for characters that fit that paradigm. And we settled on a core group of 6 leads, but we knew we were going to expand as the season continued. So we started with, Robin and our new Aqualad, our new version of Aqualad, and Kid Flash. We had Speedy in there, and but we decided not to have him join the team because we'd have Artemis instead. But we knew we'd run Speedy through it. He'd become Red Arrow and a member of the Justice League and all that. But he was an important character. Then, Superboy, Miss Martian, and Artemis in that order. And then as the season progressed, we added Zatanna, and then at the end of the season, Rocket. And, we wanted a diverse group of characters in terms of power, in terms of personality, in terms of mystery, and in terms of ethnicity, too.
Yep.
So that diversity is a priority for me and always has been. And so that was important in season 1 and was still important in season 2 and helped define who we choose for season 2. But also, to some extent, season 2, the heroes were defined a little more by our timeline, like who would be a hero by this time in order for the story to progress.
What was the casting process like? Like, how many people auditioned, and did you like seek out the cast members that ended up playing the characters?
We auditioned for 7 characters initially. Robin, Kid Flash, Aqualad, Artemis, Miss Martian, and then Superboy and Superman, because we knew we needed an actor who could play both Superboy and Superman, since genetically they were the same.
Right.
They'd have the same voice. So we needed someone who could play, Superboy at age 16 and play Superman at age 28 or whatever Superman is, and have them sound enough alike so that you didn't feel like 2 different guys were voicing this, but be able to handle the acting differences, not just in age, but in terms of personality, so that Superboy and Superman, that you can hear them being different and yet the voice is the same. So we had the audition, so we had sides for both of those characters, but it wasn't like we were looking for 7 actors. We were looking for 6 actors to play the 7 characters.
Okay.
And so we held auditions, and I don't remember, it's so long ago, but my guess is we probably auditioned close to, 50 or 60 per character. Yeah. And narrowed it down to probably 5 or 6 per, and then made our final picks. We had callbacks and made our final picks. What was interesting is after that, we didn't have time to hold auditions for season 1, so everyone else was just cast. So, for example, Crispin Freeman was one of the last finalists for Superboy and Superman, but Nolan North really felt like he captured that for us. And so when we were looking to do Speedy, who would also have to play Guardian, and then later Arsenal,
right?
Crispin seemed like a good choice for that. Or, for example, Kari Payton really captured Aqualad for us. But Phil Lamar did a really good job also. So we just sort of said, well, let's have Phil play Aquaman. And so things like that happened, and other times we did it other ways. But we did that. Season 2, we only auditioned a handful of new characters, and because there had been some press leak out of our first audition, our Season 1 audition, Season 2 I created a fake show. So people who auditioned for Blue Beetle didn't know they were auditioning for Blue Beetle, or for Impulse, Static, Wonder Girl. Actually, Wonder Girl I think we just cast. But it was basically Blue Beetle, the Tim Drake Robin, Static, and Impulse. Those 4 characters we auditioned, and I created this show called something like Cloud Ninjas or something. I mean, I just made, there was like Thunder Ninja and Lightning Ninja and Wind Ninja and Cloud Ninja. And so I think Robin was Cloud Ninja and Impulse was Wind Ninja, and Blue Beetle I think was Lightning Ninja. I don't remember. But the point is that Static was Lightning
Yes,
Ninja.
I was going to say, Static makes sense with Lightning Ninja.
Right, so I forget, it was a while ago, and it was fake, so I didn't have to remember it. But, we made up descriptions that fit our characters. If no one would say, hey, I just auditioned for Impulse on Twitter, and suddenly everyone on Twitter knows Impulse is in Season 2.
He's in Season 2, yeah, of course. Want to avoid those leaks,
I do
definitely.
it this way. When Jason Marsden walked in the door finally to read Impulse, he was like, wait, I'm playing Impulse? What happened to Lightning Ninja or whatever? Wind Ninja. And he's like, this is even better. It was fun.
That's awesome. That's got to be just awesome to pull on actors sometimes.
Well, again, it wasn't done as a prank. It was done for pragmatic reasons because we had people, sometimes well-meaning, sometimes not so well-meaning, but take advantage of the audition materials in Season 1 and leak stuff about the show.
Right.
That's
yeah.
not helpful.
Of course.
So we had to make sure for Season 2 that wasn't happening.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, it's just so funny. Oh, I'm Impulse. That's freaking better. just looking at it from your perspective, No,
it was fun. Like I said, it was fun. We actually did the same kind of thing when we were auditioning early on for Star Wars Rebels for the same basic reason, that we didn't want any leaks about the Star Wars show, so we were auditioning under fake names for a made-up TV series that doesn't exist.
Is that an actual problem, like, in the industry, if you don't mind me asking, like, the leaks and all that stuff?
It used to be. Like, we never used to bother with this back on Gargoyles or even at Spectacular Spider-Man, which was 2008. But just in the couple of years between, I guess 3 years between auditioning for Spectacular Spider-Man and auditioning for Young Justice, the rise of things like Twitter and the saturation of social media has made it problematic in a way that it didn't used to be.
So the accessibility kind of leaking, it's a lot easier now rather than, having it maybe a news studio or something like that. Now you can just put it online, just take a picture, right? And
yeah, it's literally a post or a tweet away.
Literally, for example, one of the guys who auditioned for Aqualad, who didn't get the role, and I literally don't remember his name. He, when we gave them the audition, there was a single picture of Aqualad. It wasn't even a final, but just a piece of inspirational art of our new version of Aqualad.
Mm-hmm.
And he took a cell phone picture of that picture and posted it. Said, "Hey, I just auditioned for this." I'm sure he wasn't being malicious, but he did it. And so suddenly online there's a firestorm of criticism and people prejudging our Aqualad, who I think turned out to be one of the coolest damn characters ever. But, they were calling him Blackwalad, saying that we were only doing it, for, PC reasons and stuff like that. And, they had no idea what our long-term plans were in terms of him being the son of Black Manta and all this sort of stuff. They didn't know. But they were happy to, it's the internet, so they were happy to prejudge us and assume that we were horrible. And it caused us a lot of trouble. And it had people prejudging the character before it had even gotten on the air. All because some guy was excited about auditioning for a character that he didn't even end up landing the role for.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so suddenly, nowadays, we have to be a lot more circumspect. And it's too bad. It's a pain in the ass, to be honest.
I bet.
But we do it.
Do you actually write that in, the contract, saying, if you do get the role and you give something out, breach of, secrecy clause or whatever? Or is it just...
There are NDAs, but, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know what everyone's all signing. But, yeah, there are non-disclosure agreements. But that used to be only for real top-secret stuff, and now I feel like I'm constantly signing NDAs for everything, and that's just me as a writer. When someone wants to tell me about a project, I've got to sign an NDA first. And in the old days, that was very rare. Now it's very commonplace.
Interesting. Well, bringing it back to the cast and everything, how was just out of curiosity, how was the recording happening? Because to my understanding, the way DC kind of records the dubbing for the animation and everything, I remember back in the 90s, they used to have everybody, or Warner Brothers per se, they would have all the cast members in one room and just basically duke it out acting-wise and kind of play off each other and all. And as years progressed, to my knowledge, now it's kind of all separated. Did you do the old school approach, or what kind of approach did you do with the recording?
Old school is everybody recording. If you really go old school, like 1940s, that was all people recording by themselves.
Okay.
But if you're really talking old school. But I always do it the same way, which is as much as possible you want. Every show's different, and some shows prefer to do one person at a time, and if that works for them, great. But me, I'd always prefer to have the full cast there as much as possible. Every once in a while you run into someone gets sick so they can't make it to the session, and you pick them up later by themselves. But that's not a big deal, and we try to avoid that as much as possible.
Okay. Cool. I think that about does it for me. If anybody else wants to jump in and...
Phantom, I think you have some Star Wars Rebel stuff. If not...
Yeah, I was going to ask, what was your involvement for Season 1 of Star Wars Rebels?
I was one of the 3 executive producers of Star Wars Rebels for Season 1. And I wrote some of the episodes, and I voiced a stormtrooper here and there.
Along with Steve Bloom.
Dave Filoni did some stormtroopers. I think he still does on occasion.
Dubbing a stormtrooper, a dream come true, right?
It was pretty cool.
It's Star Wars, yeah.
You also have a comic about it, if I was mistaken.
Yeah, Kanan the Last Padawan.
Yeah, Star Wars Kanan. We did 12 issues of Star Wars Kanan. The last issue came out this month.
Yeah, March
16th. And the first 6 issues were collected in trade paperback, and I expect last 6 issues will also be collected in a trade shortly. And it was a lot of fun. The main artist who did 10 out of the 12 issues was Pepe Larraz. David Curiel did color art for all 12 issues. And that team of Pepe and David is so good that I could have written a market list and the book would have been great. Hopefully the book's a little better than a market list, but the art is gorgeous on the title. And I think we told a really great backstory for the character of Kanan from Star Wars Rebels. We told, one big backstory and then some other smaller ones as well.
Do you have a preferable arc? Did you like the Last Padawan or First Blood? Like, which one was more enjoyable to write?
I enjoyed it all. I really loved writing that book. You got some really great stuff in there. I can see that on one level, Last Padawan was probably a more important arc, particularly to the fans, so that they could see how it was that Kanan survived Order 66. But I really enjoyed writing First Blood as well, and to show how he became a Padawan in the first place and what led up to Last Padawan. Because First Blood basically ends just before Last Padawan begins. And then there are a couple of each arc is 5 issues long with a 6th issue as an epilogue. And those were, even the epilogues were a lot of fun to write because they really helped transition us from one to the next, put a coda on the whole series. So I would have loved to have done more, but that wasn't Lucasfilm and Marvel's plan, at least not at this time. But we had a really fun year run on it.
So, I guess I'm up. I was going to talk about your series, The Reign of Ghosts, and I actually just wanted to ask, where did this kind of come from? Like, is there any inspiration that it came from, or did you just kind of just have an idea and just started writing?
Right after I did Gargoyles at Disney, I left Disney, I went to DreamWorks, and I developed a show at DreamWorks set in New Orleans. And that show didn't end up going, but in researching New Orleans, there's a heavy Caribbean influence in New Orleans, and I really got fascinated with the Caribbean, and in particular with the mythology of the Caribbean, specifically the mythology of the Taino people, who were the indigenous inhabitants of the Caribbean before Columbus got there. And what I found was that the Taino had this phenomenal mythology. I mean, easily as interesting as Norse mythology or Greek mythology, and yet you're talking about a mythology that from a pop culture standpoint, nobody's ever heard of any of it. And so it was like virgin territory. So I created a television series called Reign of the Ghosts, which we pitched at DreamWorks, and then at DreamWorks we took it and pitched it to Nickelodeon, and we sold it. But for financial reasons, it never got made. But I was fascinated with it, so I went back to Jeffrey Katzenberg at DreamWorks, and I asked him if he would sell it back to me, because DreamWorks owned it. And Jeffrey was great, and he sold it to me for $1. I decided to turn it into a series of novels. So this is a 9-book series. The first 2 books are written and out, and I'm working on the 3rd book now. The first 2 books are called Reign of the Ghosts and Spirits of Ash and Foam. Mm-hmm. And they're the story of a young girl who lives on a chain of Caribbean islands called Ghost Keys, or the Ghosts for short. And her parents work in the tourist service industry, and she works in the tourist service industry, and she feels very trapped. Like her whole life is going to be on this little chain of islands, and she'll never go anywhere, and she'll never do anything. And then she discovers that she's got this ancestry, this heritage, this destiny. She finds out that she can communicate with the dead. She sees dead people. And so the first book is a sort of ghost story. The second book is a vampire/mermaid story, which I know must sound really cheesy, but you've never seen a vampire like this because it's the vampire from Taino mythology. It's not like any Western vampire you've ever seen. For starters, it does not sparkle.
Okay.
And you know, so it's a very different flavor by investing respectfully but modernizing this Taino mythology for a modern audience. And I'm, you know, I love the characters, I love the books, and one of the things that we did recently is we took Reign of the Ghosts and we turned it into an audio play. And this isn't like a standard audio book with one guy just reading the book aloud. This is 20 actors playing 30 roles, actors from Star Wars Rebels, Young Justice, Gargoyles, Spectacular Spider. It's got a full musical score, over 3 hours of original music by dynamic music partners who are the composers who did Spectacular Spider-Man, Young Justice, Justice League Unlimited, Avengers, a bunch of great shows. We've got sound effects, basically like a 4-hour movie, except all the pictures are in your head.
And it's an audiobook. That sounds awesome.
It is awesome, and I know I'm biased, but, you know, I worked on it with a bunch of great people, and I truly think it's one of the best things I've ever done. And so if you like my stuff, if you like Gargoyles, if you like mythology, if you like, you know, the way I write young heroes and shows like Spectacular Spider-Man or Young Justice, I really do believe you'll like this. And I'd love for your listeners to check it out. They can download it on gumroad.com. That's GUMROAD.com/Rain, RAIN, of the Ghosts, plural. So gumroad.com/Rain of the Ghosts. They can go there right now and download the Rain of the Ghosts audio play. It's available now, and it's really great. And in terms of the books themselves, you can get those on Amazon, or you can go into any bookstore. If it doesn't happen to be on the shelf the day you walk in, you can go to the front desk of any bookstore, and they can order them for you. So it's Reign of the Ghost, the first book, and Spirits of Ash and Foam is the second book. And I'm working on the third book, Mask of Bones, now.
Are you planning on doing the same thing, like an audio play thing? Because I know that I read slow, and I like reading, but it takes a while. But audiobooks, like, I'm heavily addicted to them. So, I mean, I'm more biased on doing an audiobook. So, are you thinking about doing more? I would love to
do Spirits as an audio play, but I won't. I don't want to kid anyone. It's expensive. We managed to do the first one with a Kickstarter, and which went great. We funded, but Kickstarter was such a difficult experience. I don't want to do it that way. So basically, if Reign of the Ghost audio play does well, I don't need to profit from that. I just need, and so any profits we get, we'll put into doing the same thing for Spirits of Ash and Foam. So if Reign does well enough, we'll do Spirit, and so on. But I don't want to do another Kickstarter. It was too hard.
I also want to point out that Reign of the Ghost is also on iTunes for like $7.99.
The book?
Yeah.
The EBook? Yeah, you can get it as an EBook or as a hardcover. Not hardcover, but a paperback book.
Right.
So, talking about the third book, is there like any kind of tidbits or like, is it going to be 2017, 16? I mean, can you give us a time?
I really don't know. In the meantime, the problem is I got to earn a living. So,
yeah.
You got to fit the book in among jobs that pay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, what I did most recently, other than this audio play and my day job, which is on a Nickelodeon show called Shimmer and Shine, is I've been writing a novel for Blizzard and Scholastic based on World of Warcraft called Traveler. And that was literally announced 2 days ago and will be out in November. So my next novel actually won't be in the Reign series. It'll be the first of the Traveler series called Traveler, Sea, Land, and Sky. And that's the first in a series of books from Scholastic and Blizzard based on World of Warcraft.
Is that exciting to do? I mean,
very.
So you like
doing
the World
that.
of Warcraft?
I've been doing Kanan. I've been doing Starbrand and Nightmask for Marvel Comics, which is a superhero comic, which has been a lot of fun with artist Domo Stanton. But I've had just a great time writing Traveler.
Interesting. I wouldn't peg a World of Warcraft to get a book, but I mean, there's so many people playing it that, you know, it has an already made market. I mean, is it kid friendly? Like, can you read it to like a niece and nephew?
Yeah, it's designed to work for a kid as young as 8. You know, so 8 to 12. But it was written in such a way that I think adults would enjoy it, teenagers, tweens, whatever. But it goes down, we think, as low as for age 8.
And does it take aspects of like the game? Like, is it kind of the same type of concept and story, or is it kind of someone traveling through it, as like the title implies?
I'm not sure I get the distinction.
Does it follow? Does it use the same? I mean, I don't know if it has art or anything, but does it use the same kind of storyline that is in World of Warcraft, as well as like
the original storyline, but it's set in that world.
Okay.
And it's set in that milieu, and there is art in it. The lead character in the book is a young 12-year-old boy named Airmar Thorne, who's an artist, and he has a sketchbook. So that's a big part of who he is from his personality standpoint, is this personality of an artist and someone who sketches what he sees. And then those sketches will actually, the sketches that Aram makes will be in the book. So it's not a graphic novel, but it is illustrated by Aram's own sketches.
That's an interesting concept. I mean, that sounds actually quite fascinating. So it will be out relatively soon.
November.
Yeah.
Of this year.
Is there any schedule to continue it? Is it going to be like a series?
Yeah, the second book is out in November of next year.
Okay.
So the first book is out November 2016. Second book will be out November 2017. And I assume the third book will be out November 2018, but it's not literally on the schedule yet, so I can't be 100% sure. But that's the basic plan. There's a book a year.
Fascinating. That's a lot of work to have on your table. So, well, I think that's all of my questions.
Okay.
So, any
Phantom Boss, do you have any follow-up questions towards anything?
Not really. My main thing was Young Justice, and he pretty much covered all that.
Yeah,
okay.
You pretty much covered everything, including the Rebels.
Yeah. Just make sure we all vote with our money and not with our emotions.
And our eyeballs. And our eyeballs.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Eyeballs and wallets.
Oh, now I remember. What about trending for Young Justice?
Well, that's an interesting
Sorry,
concept.
say again?
For interest for season 3, I just remembered what trending would help also.
Trending on Netflix helps a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of something like Twitter, the hashtag that I've been using is keep binging YJ. There's a hashtag that a lot of the fans like to use, which is Renew Young Justice, which again, it's like a petition. It's a very nice hashtag, but what's it actually doing? In other words, it's the fans talking to each other, like, you know, fan 1 says to fan 2, renew Young Justice, and fan 2 says to fan 3, renew Young Justice, but none of them have the power to renew it. So what's good does that do? I mean, it's nice. I don't want to be mean, and I don't want to say don't use that hashtag, because by all means use it if you've got room, but you've only got 100 and however many characters on Twitter.
Right.
So to me, the more important hashtag is keep binging YJ, because that hashtag is a call to action. That tells the fans what they can do to help. If you just say Renew Young Justice, what does a fan do with that other than agree?
Yeah.
You know? But if you say
really
keep binging YJ and they see that hashtag, they binge YJ, and that actually helps. Other hashtags I've also used are buy YJ Comics on ComiXology, but that's a really long hashtag. Or buy YJ Blu-rays and DVDs, that's a really long hashtag. But here this is, again, those are helpful because they're calls to action as opposed to, you know, more Young Justice or Renew Young Justice or that kind of thing, which again, or Young Justice Season 3. It's like, hey, yeah, we all want Young Justice Season 3, but how's that helping?
Right, I mean,
and that's what I'm about. This is where we just began the discussion, but the Young Justice fans are fantastic, but my job, as I see it, is to focus them on actual pragmatic ways to help. And so, you know, for example, after I started all this on February 1st, some guy tweeted that Season 3 of Young Justice must be happening or Greg wouldn't have tweeted about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no. If it were happening, I wouldn't need to tweet about it.
Yeah, the great logic.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't even make any sense, you know.
Right.
If it was already happening, I'd keep my mouth shut and we just surprise you when we were done, I guess. I have no idea. I keep that kind of secret. But, you know, I wouldn't need to tweet about it. The reason I'm tweeting about it every night is because it's not happening yet, but I actually do believe, and I really do believe this, that there's an opportunity here to make it happen. But it's really up to the fans. And the fans contact me and they go, like, at one point, a bunch of fans were like, this was like 3 weeks ago or something like that, saying, this week, let's all binge watch YJ on Netflix. Let's all do it and get it trending on Netflix, which was great. But then somehow or other, in a game of telephone on the internet, you know, that became, this is the key week. This is the week when we have to do it. This is the week when Netflix is paying attention. And then, you know, the week ended and people are going to me, so we binged that whole week. Did it work? I'm like, who said that week had any significance, you know? And then the other thing is people are still asking me, did it work? Did it work? And the thing is I don't work for Warner Brothers. We'll all find out at the same time if it works. And if you haven't heard anything, then keep binging YJ because that means it hasn't happened yet. Mm-hmm. Believe me, I'm not going to be shy about telling people if I find out that we're going. But we're not, you know. But I still believe that what's been done up to this point has had an effect. That Netflix seems to be talking to Warner Brothers. I don't know if that means they're going to make a deal. I have no idea. I don't work for Netflix. I don't work for Warner Brothers. I work for Nickelodeon. But I'm hopeful. I'm sincerely hopeful. And so's Brandon, and so's the cast, and we all believe that this is a realistic way to jumpstart things. But that's all it is. It's a jumpstart. It's not a guarantee. It's not like suddenly if John Smith binges 22 episodes of Young Justice tomorrow night, then the day after, yep, that was it. That was enough. Those 22 episodes, that put us over the top. There's no number. There's no, like, people ask me, how many people have to binge in order to make it work? And my answer is, I have no idea. It's just about getting a lot of people to do it a lot, buy the DVDs, buy the Blu-rays, buy the comics on ComiXology, and to binge, so that they can't ignore us. But it's got to be an ongoing thing. It can't be, well, I did it yesterday. I watched a couple episodes yesterday. Are we done?
Yeah,
that's not
need more than that.
Do it.
You know what you should do? You should Photoshop a poster of the America We Want You, but replace it with the Young Justice characters and be like, we want you to binge watch Young Justice.
Well, I'll let you
like
Photoshop that because I don't know how to use Photoshop.
Okay. Maybe we'll make it. We'll see.
Again, I feel that my role in this is to offer the fans a pragmatic use for their energies.
Focus
of course.
on the solution rather than talking, kind of thing.
Right. And that's the best I can do. I don't have anything else to offer. But what I will say, and I mean this, is that I sincerely believe this will help. This isn't me sort of saying, here, do some busy work just to get off my back, because I didn't have to start this in the first place.
Right.
I honestly believe this can help, but I can't guarantee anything. I'm not in control. It's not up to me. And I don't even work at Warner Brothers anymore, although I'd be happy to go back to do Young Justice.
Right.
Are people actually asking you to guarantee stuff, even though you're kind of not even involved with the people making the decisions?
People are actually mad at me that the show was canceled, as if that was my choice. Like,
Well, if they have
and I respond to them, I'm like, do you really think that I voluntarily put myself out of work? But I'm not kidding. People have tweeted me, and they still do to this day. I get 1 or 2 tweets a day of someone who's begging me to put Young Justice back on me, as if I have control over that, which of course I do not, to make it clear.
Just misinformed people. They should donate their millions of dollars to put it back on then.
No.
So any
that would be nice.
The internet is a funky little thing, and it's amazing how hard it is to get even the simplest message across. I can tweet for 2 months solid about how to get Young Justice back, and then, get a tweet last night with someone saying, how do we get Young Justice back? And, there's a piece of me that goes, God damn it, look at my feed. That's all I've been tweeting about for 2 months. And yet you're coming in fresh, but, you don't want to alienate that person, so you just repeat the information, but I'll admit it gets exhausting.
We're going to just have to retweet all that.
Yeah, well, to be fair, though, hopefully this interview has cleared some of that stuff up, too. That's one I would think, like, one of the benefits from like an interview type of thing like this, where it kind of clears up some of this and kind of gets the information kind of set in stone. This is what we got to do, And
that you have no involvement in decision making having to do with that topic at all.
Right, that too. So at least all that information is mostly clear, based on this interview. Which we really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thanks. I mean, like I said, I like to get this information out, so I appreciate you guys doing it. When you're done, when you're ready to post it, if you could do me a favor, do 2 things. One, tweet the link to me.
Okay.
And I'll retweet it. And 2, email the link to me, and I'll put it on my Ask Greg webpage, which I should mention. If people want to reach me, the best way to reach me, if you've just got a quick question or you just want to make contact, is on Twitter. I'm at Greg_Weisman, Weisman. But if you have an in-depth question that you want answered, you might want to go to my website instead, which is AskGregWeisman, all one word, .com. AskGregWeisman.com.
Just don't ask him about Justice League and getting it back.
Exactly.
Well, they kind of finished that show perfectly anyway. They don't need to bring that one back. Young Justice on the other, Young Justice, yes, and Teen Titans and anyway, tangent happening. Ignoring that. Sorry.
So, besides your book, Reign of Ghosts, is there anything else?
Reign of the
Ghosts. Do you want to mention anything else that maybe in the Warcraft book? Is there anything else that we should be on the lookout and try to pick up if we see it?
Those are the main things. Reign of the Ghosts and Spirits of Ash and Foam, or the Reign of the Ghosts audio play, which is at gumroad.com/Reign of the Ghosts. There's the Traveler book, but that won't be out till November. That's the World of Warcraft book. Star Wars Kanan, the last issue came out this month, but you can probably still get all the issues at any local comic book store. But the first 6 issues are already collected in a trade called Star Wars Kanan, the Last Padawan, and then the next 6 issues will be collected shortly, I'm sure. And then you can pick up my other Marvel book, Starbrand and Night Mask, about 2 young cosmic superheroes who are freshmen in college. Then otherwise, I'm working on Season 2 and Season 3 of Shimmer and Shine. The first season of Shimmer and Shine's out now. It's a preschool show, so it's not as many members of your audience.
Well,
I didn't work on Season 1, which is what's airing now, but I've worked on Season 2, and I'm currently working on Season 3.
So a birthday present for the younger family members.
Oh, there's one Gargoyle thing, too. There's a Gargoyle Cinestory Volume 1, which is a an adaptation of the first 5-episode pilot of Gargoyles, and that comes out in May.
Oh, relatively soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that everything?
Yeah, that's everything.
That's everything, yeah. Better be.
Well, one last thing before you go. As a well, I don't want to say up and coming writer, but myself in my spare time, I'm a filmmaker, or basically I want to be a filmmaker / writer, director, etc. I was wondering if you can give some words of wisdom to inspiring writers and, you know, that kind of stuff. Any friendly tips or friendly advice for up and coming writers for possibly going into the industry, pursuing it as a career?
Well, I mean, the basic advice I have starts with reading.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a writer, you should be reading a lot. You should be reading the classics, whether it's Homer or Shakespeare or Dickens, I mean, things that have really stood the test of time. You should also be reading a newspaper on a daily basis. You should be listening. You should go to McDonald's or Subway or wherever you prefer to eat and listen to the way people talk. I don't mean eavesdrop to get the content of what they're saying, the way they talk. Then if you're a writer, you write. A writer writes. A writer writes every single day. Sick, healthy, tired, exhausted, I don't care. You're writing every day. If all you have the energy to write is a market list, write a market list for that day. But you should be writing something every day. It's too easy to procrastinate. Believe me, I know this. I've been doing it professionally since 1983. And procrastination is one of the things I'm very, very good at. And yet, if you're not writing every day, you're not a writer. And the second to last piece of advice I'm going to give is proofread.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a professional writer, you have to learn to proofread. I myself am somewhat dyslexic, so what I've learned to do in order to proofread is to read aloud to myself. My ear will catch things that my dyslexic eye will not catch.
Okay.
And so reading aloud is very helpful for proofreading, but you must find a way to do it. If you're just literally bad at proofreading, then you need to find a buddy or a spouse or someone who can proofread for you. And I do not mean spell check. I taught at USC. The first essay we assigned was, what do you expect from your college education? I got at least 10 papers back telling me what they expected from their collage education. Spell check didn't catch the word collage, because collage is a real word. So spell check is great. I use spell check too, but if you're counting on spell check, you're screwed. So learn to proofread. Now, as I said, I'm partially dyslexic. Reading aloud fixes almost everything except homonyms.
Mm-hmm.
My ear can't catch the difference between two words that sound alike. And so if I'm doing something that's really important, my wife proofreads it for me.
Mm-hmm.
But one way or another, you've got to be able to proofread. Because I'll be real clear about this. If I'm reading something from a writer and I see a typo in it, no matter how insignificant, I'll let it go once, because everyone can make a mistake. But if I'm on the first page and I see 2 typos, I'm tossing that. Because if a writer can't be bothered to proofread and be professional, why should I be bothered to take my valuable time to read it? And I'm generous because I'll only toss it after the second typo. And I know tons of people who the moment they see 1 typo, they're done.
Mm-hmm.
So learn to proofread. And then the last bit of advice I give people is, depending on what medium you want to write in, you should be living where the work works. So figure out where the work is being done, and if you're not already living there, move there.
Well, with that said, Greg, we really appreciate you coming on. It's an honor to have you on here. Again, we just really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to talk with us.
Happy to do it.
Okay, I think that concludes this interview. Thanks
Thank you
again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was fun.
Take care.
I'm glad to hear that. I hope we could do this again sometime.
Sure.
Maybe for when hopefully when if season 3 happens, we'll do a follow-up. Okay.
That'd be great.
All right.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Adios. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Bye.
Thank you again.